Hey everyone, welcome to our podcast, This Is My Story. I'm your host, Karen Poitras, and we're going to hear about the weird reality of RAD. If you're one of our loyal listeners, welcome back. If you're new to our podcast, be sure to check out our welcome info episodes 1 and 2, so you can get properly introduced to what reactive attachment disorder is and the therapeutic parenting techniques our parents talk about on our podcast. So either way, it's great to have you join us here today. This podcast is interviews with parents, kids, and professionals who share their stories with us on a wide range of experiences, anything from their craziest happenings to their journeys of healing. Today is Tuesday, May 5th, and you're listening to episode number 10. This is the second part of our interview with Eric and Julie, so if you missed out on the first part, make sure you head back to our channel and listen to episode 9 to catch that. And this episode is the Q&A session we did with them, and they answer so many great questions that a lot of parents have and caregivers and therapists want to know. So I'm excited to share their answers with you today, so let's get into it. All right, welcome back to our podcast for the second episode. For anyone who didn't listen to the first episode that you did, do you want to just quickly introduce yourselves?
I'm Eric.
I'm Julie. We are from Ohio, and God blessed us with 2 kids.
Awesome. And anyone who's listening, if you want to hear more of their story, you can listen into the first episode that they did last week. So let's go into some questions. The first one I want to ask you is, what made you realize your kids needed a different type of parenting? Was there kind of one moment when you realized this wasn't working or it needed something else? Or was it kind of a gradual buildup of things that you kept seeing or experiencing?
Well, I've been around kids my whole life, and I've never seen a child act the way that our son did. Rages for no reason, or no major reason. What else?
Just your typical, like, well, because of this, you're going to lose this privilege for this amount of time.
No, cause and effect wasn't really there.
Yeah, that wasn't an option in his brain. It didn't, I can't watch TV for 3 days. Then off the edge. And you think, and it was, and we're like, wow, that really shouldn't be that serious. So, we knew something. We need to probably move a different way.
And so at that point, had you tried kind of the typical parenting and had seen that it didn't work, or were you already using some therapeutic methods?
We had started, I remember back when Caleb was 3. Eric was deployed the year before, and we were another family, and the kids and I were very close. So they had used, or they were involved in the therapeutic parenting. So that was our first introduction to it. But then also when Caleb was 3, we sought help at our local children's hospital. And because he was just 3, most kids don't need that. And so they're saying, well, try charts and stickers and, these different things that we all know do not work with our kids. So at that point, and it was because of our friends too, that we were maybe introduced to it earlier than maybe we normally would have been.
And so what was your introduction or your start on therapeutic parenting? How did you find out about it and start implementing it in your home?
Well, in order for me to help our friends with a couple of her kids, I needed to watch go to her therapist, and I watched Nancy Thomas's videos, and then just within a few months after that, it's like, I think we need to maybe see the therapist also, and then implement this in our own family.
Yeah. And how old was your son at that time when you started?
I would say he was 6.
And then what was your biggest challenge going through therapeutic parenting?
The fact that most people do not understand why we are parenting this way or make the choices that we make for our kids. That was huge.
We really couldn't say, well, let's take the kids to my parents, because they weren't up to speed with what we knew. So it was difficult to find that, when Julie and I needed that respite, where can they go to? And
just a date, not even respite at that point, but just a date night.
So I guess finding that qualified person or couple to watch the kids for that time was probably a big challenge.
Right. And then as two parents working together and parenting these kids, what were some things that you did to prevent or avoid triangulation and manipulation?
I guess the triangulation would, Julie would say when I would come home from work and the kids were like, "Daddy, Daddy," and she's like, she's about to pull her hair out because she had spent the whole day with them, now all of a sudden, and then, it's like hard for me to, like, when she's telling me this stuff, what, there's no way, that they could act like this or Caleb could act like this. Well, I mean, that was a short time before, okay, yeah, yes, he can get like this, and it's not you, Julie, it is him. So I think we caught on to it quickly when it started to happen.
Yeah. And then just going to throw in a question for you here, Eric. So as the dad, you've been gone all day, or you don't see quite as many behaviors sometimes because Julie would be the primary caregiver. Mm-hmm. What was that like, seeing a different kid kind of than Julie did?
He could hold it together for a little bit, for a little while, but I mean, it really didn't take long before there was a no somewhere during the day, and that was when that behavior would just show itself. So it wasn't like he just behaved for me. He could hold it together for a little while, but eventually, that his rad would show. I guess is a way to say it.
Right.
Even people would ask, is Caleb physical? Does he assault Eric as well as you and Bethany? And at first it was no. It would just be me and Bethany that he would threaten and assault. And then eventually it did get to the point where he would assault or try to assault Eric as well.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And then a slightly different topic. What are some of the challenges that you had having two kids kind of at different stages in their healing?
I think Julie mentioned it earlier. A big challenge was we have Caleb here who needs all this, who gets our attention. He gets our focus. And then we have Bethany over here who's not really, we're not really watching her as careful as we should be and seeing what her needs are. So I think that was a big thing.
Bethany's needs weren't as apparent at that time. So it took Caleb being out of the home for a period before Bethany's needs became more apparent and we were able to help her.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then everybody who lives this knows how exhausting it is emotionally and physically and mentally. And what are some things the two of you did together or did separately to practice self-care so you could be the best self you could for your family?
I typically would try to exercise. I was kind of running at that time, kind of doing just some 5Ks, and I would get up early in the morning, before everybody was awake, and go and run, and it just felt that really helped me. I also just opening my Bible and studying what God has to say to me, and just meditating on that. I mean, you get so much hope out of it. So I think those two things really help me.
For me, I would not suggest these at all. I shopped. So I did the retail therapy, which, like I said, I would not suggest. We're still, in some ways, paying for that even now. And then the other thing is I would eat. And again, not good choices. I would make it through the day and think, oh, I need a hot fudge sundae, or I need, 6 chocolate chip cookies. So I would say, find a healthier way to practice self-care.
Yeah. But at that point, it probably got you through what it needed to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I had to, additionally, I just thought of this. I was still in the Army Reserves during that time, and I would be gone for a weekend once a month, and Julie would be here by herself. So I got to take, a weekend off, from the rad environment, while she's still had to stay here and get her way through it. So.
Yeah. And just kind of with that, did you have any type of respite care while Caleb was still in your home, or was that kind of non-existent at that point?
Back in 2008, I believe, Caleb had ran away, several other things. So he had a lot of consequences to to repay, or to make up for. And our pastor at the time came over, and he came in and talked to Caleb and talked to us, and he was asking if, how the church family could walk alongside us and how they could help. And as Eric explained before, of course, we all know that, just not anybody, grandma and grandpa and the teenager down the road, nobody can watch your kids. It has to be specialized. So he said, well, let's pray about it. And, so we talked about a couple different people that would help. And there was a lady from church who came to mind as I looked through the directory, Miss Debbie. She was a retired high school English teacher. So she has been such a blessing to our family with Caleb and Bethany. And then also, even today, Bethany will still go to, hang out with Miss Debbie.
Yeah, that's great. So you got to have at least a little bit of a break during some of those times.
Yes, we did.
Perfect. All right. And then kind of tying in with that, and you talked about your church family helping you. What was the most helpful thing that someone did to help your family?
We had attended, actually myself and the other mom had attended one of Nancy's seminars about half an hour from us. And she talked about camps at that time. And so I looked into camps. I thought they were way too expensive. Eric said, there's no way we can go. Between Eric's mom and dad helping us out, our church family helped us out to be able to go to the one of Nancy's camps. So, and then since then, I think there's been a couple other times that they've helped us out with different things so we could help either Caleb or Bethany with something that they needed.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. And then one last question I want to ask you is, how is your life now for your family? I know you have one child who's healthy and happy and healed, and one who is still working on that part. How does that affect your family, or what has it been like?
It's Bethany's 19. It's a pleasure to have her at home. I mean, she still has her moments, but she's a great daughter. Caleb is he's currently not in our home. He's incarcerated. And
He's choosing not to live by the law.
right. He's made some bad choices. We talk to him. He will call us, and sometimes it's hard to have conversation because there's really nothing in common. But there still is. He's still our son. We still love him. We still support him as far as we'll give him advice or and talk to him, and I don't know.
I would say right now that is a challenge because God has given us 2 kids, and what's best for Bethany right now is not to have contact, or we even had to go so far last May. We had no idea, or we would have done this a long time ago, that it was re-traumatizing Bethany to have pictures of her and Caleb and family pictures up around the house. We had no idea. Like I said, we would have done that years and years ago. So as soon as we found that out, I had started the night before, just something. I just felt the nudge to start, removing stuff. And then she was able to verbalize to me the next day. So if Caleb's our son, Bethany's our daughter, how do we support Caleb and be there for Caleb? But if it's hurting Bethany, we're trying to do we're trying to do what's best for both kids.
Yeah. So you still have kind of the up and down roller coasting that comes along with trauma.
Yes.
Yeah, that's always hard.
And I think it's important to remember, we have to remember, Julie and I remind ourselves, Caleb made these choices. It wasn't, it's not, we can't put it on our shoulders and take responsibility for it. Nobody wants to say, oh, my son's in prison or whatever, but at the same time, we're not laying fault on ourselves. We're not carrying that guilt with us. Caleb made those choices, and that's now he's dealing with the consequences. So
most of the time, I think I play what if. Well, what if I would have done this, and if I would have done this, would that have helped?
Yeah.
One thing though we've always told the kids is nothing you can ever do or say can make us stop loving you.
Yeah. Kids need to hear that for sure. Yeah, and then we're almost out of time here for this episode, but is there anything that you would want to tell other therapeutic parents who are going through a similar journey to yours or what you went through in the earlier years?
I would say that, I've never been shy about sharing our family story because I wanted, to help other families and that hope and encouragement. But we're all on the same team. We understand. Seek help. Be humble and willing to learn from others. And take care of yourselves.
Yeah. I think like the rad child, I think he requires like so much more consistency and focus and time. And I think the big word is consistency. Just stay with it. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Well, that's great to hear. And thank you again for doing this interview and being on our podcast. It's really exciting.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Your story's been amazing to listen to. All right, so that brings us to the end of this episode, as well as the end of our interview with Eric and Julie. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you didn't catch the first part of the interview we did, head to our channel and listen to episode number 9. And that's where they tell their story about their journey through foster care and adoption and therapeutic parenting. Next week, we are going to be interviewing their daughter, Bethany. She's going to share her healing story with us. So make sure you check back in for that next Tuesday. That will be episode number 11. Thank you for joining us today on this episode. Make sure you check out the description for more information on our podcast and on the RADish Ranch. And be sure to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications if you haven't already. That way you can get our episodes straight to your inbox every Tuesday morning. And also check out our other social media. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram account. We post on both of those pretty much every day. Information, tips for parents, fun activities to do with your kids. So a lot of great stuff goes out on there. The songs on our podcast are The Way Things Go and Come Down, both written and recorded by French Press, and we've used them here with their permission. This Is My Story is brought to you by the RADish Ranch. I'm your host, Karen Poitras, and I will see you next week. Stay awesome.